Well, Razorback fans, we know that Arkansas is getting ready for Texas A&M, but can they expect to play the way they did against Auburn and still expect to win? Well, let's talk about it on today's THV11 edition of the Locked On Razorbacks podcast.
You are Locked On Razorbacks, your daily podcast on the Arkansas Razorbacks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into Locked On Razorbacks podcast. I am your host, John Neighbors, and this is a very special edition of the Locked On Razorbacks podcast with the THV11 edition. And just like, I won't say always, but half the time at least, we're joined by Tyler Cass. He is the sports director down there at THV11 in Central Arkansas. And Tyler, once again, appreciate you joining us, man. How you doing?
Good. Happy to be here. And yeah, about half the time it's a two-person department, so we like to, split up the duties. But yeah, no, happy to do it.
Well, there's a lot of things that we're talking about with Arkansas. They kind of have dual personalities. It seems like that game against Auburn. We'll touch on that for a little bit. I know we're going to turn the page there, but if you would have told me that Arkansas was going to play that type of game, now I would call it maybe a C- type of game and win, I wouldn't have believed you. But luckily for Arkansas, Auburn's really bad and they got some major issues. So when it comes to the grand scheme of things, can you or do you take anything away from that Auburn game of trying to figure out what this Arkansas team is actually all about?
I mean, you take away a win. That's the one positive, I think. It's halfway to a bowl game, receiving votes in the AP polls. So clearly there's something to that. But yeah, like you kind of mentioned there, I think the biggest takeaway is just how bad Auburn is, especially how bad their quarterback situation is. Because, a loss to Cal, I think you're thinking, okay, it's early season. It's, Cal's in the ACC now, so maybe there's some weird devil magic happening there. But it's still Auburn. It's still an SEC team. But for them to play like that at their home stadium, that was pretty brutal. For Arkansas, though, the team we care about and focus on, obviously a lot of positivity on the defensive end. I think if you learn anything, it's just kind of building on what we know already about Taylen Green's limitations as a passer. I think, unfortunately, we're kind of realizing, okay, that's a very real thing that Arkansas is going to have to figure out how to live with. I think we saw in the fourth quarter, though, the solution to that going forward, at least, which was, they threw the ball maybe 4 or 5 times, but were still able to get drives when they needed to. Throw that Satania broken play kind of out a little bit. Obviously, great play, and you love seeing that from Satania because you hadn't seen much of him yet this year, the ability to go up and make a play like that. But, yeah, going forward, it looks like this offense is going to be, on the legs of Green and Jackson, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. Taylen Green is one of the best runners in the country at the quarterback position.
Yeah, and that's the thing is now going and flipping the page to Texas A&M, they're a very beatable team. They struggled against Bowling Green this past weekend, and I know that at the time that was a tough loss to Notre Dame, but even Notre Dame, still a good team, but maybe not as good as what people thought. Everyone's still trying to figure themselves out. But since you mentioned Taylen Green, just how can Arkansas get him involved a little bit more as far as the accuracy goes of his passing? Is this just something we're going to have to live with? Like, is it just something that Razorback fans are just going to have to look at and be like, hey, Taylen Green is what he is. He's not going to magically get to 70% completion percentage. That's what you got in him, and you just hope that he doesn't make too many costly mistakes.
Yes, somewhat it is just that, because it's not like Taylen Green is, some freshman just coming in out of high school and Bobby Petrino's still trying to mold him how he wants to. He's a known quantity. He's been playing college football for years. He was Bobby P's guy. He was the guy all through camp. He won the job, even though it didn't ever really seem like it was that much of a competition from the get-go. And you're kind of, look, if anyone knows how to scheme wide receivers open, it's Bobby Petrino. So you don't think there's a lot to change necessarily going forward as far as like, oh, let's get him some easier throws. Petrino's past would seem to indicate that he knows how to get the easiest throws, and Taylen's just not making them right now. I think it's just it's going to turn into writing that line of like, all right, what is the least that we can have him throw while still keeping the defense honest? Because building an offense around a more mobile quarterback, almost a kind of a more high school style offense where your quarterback is the most athletic guy in the field and not necessarily the guy with the best arm, uh, is doable, I think, going forward, as long as he can make just enough throws. And if there's an offensive coordinator I trust to give him, 15 to 20 attempts a game where, hey, it's something quick, or hey, you're going to use your legs to buy time for stuff to happen downfield to get you an open guy, it's Bobby Petrino. But I don't see a world where the Oklahoma State game and what Taylen Green was able to do with his arm in that game is going to be replicated against SEC play.
Yeah, and then even with Texas A&M, like looking at them as a team, again, they're a beatable team, but they've been a beatable team. I feel like every game that Arkansas has played them in down there in Arlington. This is the last one, thank goodness, that they're going to play down there. But as far as matchup wise, and as far as looking at what Arkansas has done so far this season, do you feel like Arkansas is a better team entering in this game compared to Texas A&M?
Well, like you said, I mean, Texas A&M is always beatable in Arlington, as obviously as Arkansas. We say that, and they've won one in the last decade.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, and I won't miss the drive to Arlington every single year. I'll miss the press box food at AT&T, but that's another conversation. Yeah, no, I mean, they're not great. I mean, you mentioned the loss to Notre Dame, which is now a transitive loss to Northern Illinois for whatever that's worth. A Bowling Green team that I don't think anyone is expecting anything of this year. Got them within one score. I mean, there's a world where if Arkansas's defense plays like they did, especially in the first half, but really even in the second half. I mean, look, they'll beat Tennessee potentially if they turn Tennessee over 5 times. Some of that is quarterback play, but some of that's also, I mean, shout out to the defensive backs. We've been talking for weeks now with Hudson Clark out, with Jalen Braxton out. Like, man, those are the guys that we need to see some depth from and hadn't. We saw that in the last game. I mean, Slaughter and Metcalf obviously looked great. And now, I mean, I think Sam Pittman said they're hopeful that they get Clark and Braxton back this week. So with those guys back there, all of a sudden you have not an abundance of riches, but all right, the rest of the team played well enough, if not, good at times, and here come your starters. I think that secondary all of a sudden can hang with pretty much everyone, and especially an A&M team that, I mean, you want to talk about history though, A&M quarterbacks against Arkansas, things always, it seems like half the time they're starting someone new or someone gets hurt, and then something happens in the fourth quarter and they end up throwing for 300 yards. So I do think that the Arkansas defense keeps this close enough. Taylen Green's legs give him enough that I don't think Arkansas is the better team, but I don't think that who the better team is outside of Arlington has ever mattered in this matchup.
And we'll talk a little bit about Arkansas and their performance and how it can fare against Texas A&M. We'll do that here in a second. So stay with us on the Locked On Razorbacks podcast. All right, Razorback fans, we know that so many of you out there are always looking for that extra boost of energy to try to make it through the crazy times that we have going on, whether it's dealing with taking the kids to school or whether it's going to the gym or whether it's doing the do-it-yourself projects at home. Well, luckily you have something called 5 Hour Energy that's going to help you out with all of it. If you can grab your 5 Hour Energy, you can stay alert all the time, no matter if it's for your workouts or for those things at home, even if it's watching for all your favorite sports games. I mean, Saturdays and Sundays, it's a marathon for a lot of you out there when it comes to college football as well as the NFL. So 5 Hour Energy is going to help you through the day, through the process, and get going in the right direction each and every day. It gets you into the zone every time. And 5 Hour Energy is the brand hardworking people like you have trusted for over 20 years, and they give everybody an alert, energized feeling throughout the day whenever it's busy and especially when it's hectic. You always know where to find the 5 Hour Energy shots right at the cash register. Nearly every convenience, drug, or grocery store nationwide. You can stock up on money-saving multi-packs and make sure you never run out of delicious, energizing 5 Hour Energy shots. And if you go to 5hourenergy.com, that's the number 5hourenergy.com, and get some 5 Hour Energy product today, you can use my promo code LOCKEDONCFB to receive 20% off your order. This offer is only valid until September 30th on one order and cannot be used with other promotions. The code is not good on subscription orders, but check it out today at 5hourenergy.com. Continuing on with our Thr11 Tuesday here on the Locked On Razorbacks podcast with sports director Tyler Cass joining us. So Tyler, looking again, we've kind of already made it look like what we're doing here in the A&M process, but it's the team did not play well overall, and Sam Pittman even addressed this in his press conference. It's more than just Taylen Green. There were some other things that they need to work on, and I think that's where a lot of people are reserved about their excitement or their confidence in this team. Is even though they won, it's great. It didn't really answer any of the questions that they have for the rest of the season. So, do you feel like Arkansas can afford to play like they did on Saturday against Auburn and win not just this game against A&M, but any other SEC game the rest of the way?
No, I think if Arkansas plays like they did against Auburn, there's one more SEC win for them, and that's Mississippi State, because Mississippi State is terrible.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, Auburn would mercy rule Mississippi State if that was a thing. I think at this point, I mean, shout out to Toledo. But no, I mean, as much as I was talking up the DBs, I think some of that comes down to play calling, because if Auburn just kept running the football, it felt like they were having some success there, and A&M, for the first few games, seems to want to run the ball a bit more. So I think that could turn into an issue of still not seeing the defensive line get pressure like you'd want to. And honestly, the gaudy turnover numbers, I think, disguised other issues on the defense. I mean, you look at I think it was the last two, the fumble and then the other interception towards the end of the first half there. Those were good drives for Auburn, or they were in, positive territory for them. And then, a fumble by a running back who shouldn't have fumbled that ball. It wasn't like a hard hit or anything. And then a misplay by a quarterback who's not very good, and Arkansas escapes those without even giving up a field goal. So a lot of that was Arkansas took advantage of opportunities provided by a bad Auburn team. Going forward in the SEC, you can't expect to get bailed out every time by a turnover. And then, the offense benefits with field position and everything. So, no, I mean, look, it's that weird conundrum of Arkansas should probably be 4-0 right now, and also Arkansas is not a good football team right now. And I don't think those sentences don't seem like they should make sense together, but I think that's what it is. This team, shot themselves in the foot against Oklahoma State. You win that game, you're probably ranked right now, and I still wouldn't have any more confidence in them if they had made one more play, because you saw how the rest of the game went. You saw how UAB went. You saw how Auburn went. They're winning games against lesser competition, in which the ball kind of starts bouncing Arkansas's way a little bit. The margin for error is a lot less against every non-Mississippi State team left on the conference schedule. Against like an A&M, things might still be close, because, again, Arlington, it's going to come down to something silly in the fourth quarter, overtime. We all know that. It is what it is. Against Tennessee the next week, against LSU, the same Arkansas team that ran out there and beat Auburn last week is going to get blown out of their own stadium. So, yeah, lots to work on, because this team isn't going to win a lot of SEC games as is.
So let me ask you, because I think everyone's got their own theory, and I know you've been covering Arkansas football, sports in general, for a while here in the state, but why does this Arkansas team always find ways to lose this A&M game? And because here's the thing, it's one thing if it's a stretch, but as they say, a dead clock's right twice a day. You figure at some point in time they would find a way to win, because it's not like A&M's been great. In fact, you can make an argument that A&M has been, especially over the past decade, extremely average. I think the only year that they had was Jimbo's year in the COVID season. They went 9-1 or whatever, but every other year it's been 4-8, 6-6, 7-5. Arkansas hasn't fared much better, but why do you think this game in particular always causes problems for Arkansas, especially since it seems like every game they have the lead and they end up blowing it somehow?
Right. I mean, look, if you flipped a coin 10 times and it landed on heads 9 times out of 10, you'd start to think that the coin was weighted a little bit, because it should be 50-50, or at very least, 60-40 or something here. I think the teams are a lot more even across the last decade than people would think. Some of that is just branding. A&M's not quite Texas in the why are they ranked preseason every year if they're going to blow it, but they're close to that. Texas has at least, kind of overcome that the last couple years, and Arkansas doesn't get that benefit of the doubt. I do think they're pretty close teams. It's greater than A&M. I mean, we've seen that it was the biggest issue under Brett Bielema, Chad Morris, whatever, and now it's become a big issue under Sam Pittman, is closing out any game. It doesn't matter if it's A&M, it's everyone. I think it just happens to come up in the A&M game more because of how close the teams tend to be from a talent perspective, just from a how good they are perspective. So Arkansas, again, for probably similar and different reasons under the last three or so coaches has been bad at closing games out, regardless. The A&M game is always a close game. So, yeah, you throw in that being a specific issue this team has, and then against a team where they're always going to be within a score or two, and you get what happens in Arlington. Either that or it's some kind of curse or something. Something about the trophy games, too. Any kind of game with a trophy that's been invented in the last decade seemed to go against Arkansas. So, who knows?
Yeah, maybe just stop having trophies for things, and then Arkansas will start winning. Maybe that's the secret ingredient to it. But Tyler, I know it's going to be a great weekend. But just before I let you get out of here, what's all going on at THV11 this week, and also there's plans for the rest of the football season, and what people can expect over at THV11.
Yeah, I mean, sports every night at 6 and 10 with yours truly. We record it for the mornings just because otherwise I'd have to work about a 22-hour day, and I don't think anyone wants that for me. I'd hope at least. But yeah, I mean, that our big thing. Check it out. We have one of the biggest high school football shows in the state every Friday night. Highlights from all the big games around Central Arkansas at 10 o'clock on the Friday Night Blitz. And then the only local TV station in the entire state that does a live 30-minute post-game show every Saturday during football season. It's Hog Zone. John's on there almost every week, and we break it down. It's a lot of fun. So yeah, Friday and Saturday nights during football season, high school and college, we got it covered.
Well, it's going to be great. Should be a great weekend once again. And you can check out all of your Razorback football coverage there in the Central Arkansas area right there at THV11. So, Tyler, appreciate you joining us. And we look forward to catching up again next Tuesday for another THV11 Tuesday. And hopefully we have a really great game between two possibly ranked opponents coming to Fayetteville. We'll wait and see. But either way, appreciate it and enjoy the rest of your weekend. All right.
Thanks, man. Talk to you next week.